pledge of allegiance. Have Alvin Johnson. Allegiance to the flag. United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation under God. Allegiance to have Alvin Johnson. Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Fairwell.
Here.
Alderman Rita. Alderman Montoya. Alderman McGee.
Present.
Alderman Carr. Here. Alderman Rowe.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation of journal proceedings. We need a motion to approve the city council minutes for December 22nd, 2021, special city council meeting. Motion by Alderman Carr, is there a second? Alderman McGee. Question. Madam Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr. Aye. Alderman Rowe.
Aye.
5 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, we have a motion to approve city council minutes from the February 8th, 2022 regular city council meeting. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Rowe, is there a second? Alderman Fairwell on the question. Seeing none, clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Rowe.
Aye.
5 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, we have public comment. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, Your Honor, City Council members. If we allow me to come here and say a few things. Initially, I'd like to thank you. I guess we got a new police chief. I'd like to give congrats on Chief Bob. And the, I guess, appointment of Jamie Schultz. Jamie. Side note, I had Jamie on my baseball team. He was 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
4 years back. But no, it's nice being here, and I just think the city workers doing a good job to climb the snow this past couple weeks. And you know, you have to give credit where credit's due. Too much in the activity, I don't like that. But anyway, my uncle, Robert Peter Contreras, I said, "I'm going to city council meeting tonight." And you want to say anything to city council? As you know, he's got a bad back. He got sclerosis bad. He can't. So he told me to say this. He says, from 100 on Greenwood Street, from 127th to 123rd, the streets look like, you know, bad. So that was the same one they're going to fix it. So we're city council, not ties, but tax and so forth. And also too, I go to the almost every day to Salvation Army to get a senior citizen meal. I'm only 72 years old. Anyway, around that area there, what I noticed, a lot of speeding traffic, big time. You know, I think speeding was what, 30, 35? People are going 60 a mile faster, more or less. So I wonder if the city could do a better job of monitoring that, because there's a lot of seniors that older than me that, you know, drive there and their reactions are slow. So I hate to see anybody get hurt. You know, so I just, that's my, speech today if I want to give it. Oh yeah, I live at 134, 27 miles. That's my address. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to come forward. My name is the first ward. I really just wanted to come forward and acknowledge my severe disappointment with the city, with the previous administration as well as the current administration. I have been trying to reach out to individuals from the last administration, but currently to the mayor, anybody that will listen, also contacting the legal counsel for the city of Blue Island for an issue that I have been dealing with since April 16th of 2021 with no resolve. Not even for anyone to contact me to say. Yeah,
I believe as soon as I got in, we authorized this. I think there was just some paperwork issues. I'm on your side 100%. I'm familiar with the situation when I was an alderman. And I understand that there is still issue with being processed. I can see where you're coming from. I think Administrator Picasso wanted to say something. You want to talk to them? I'm gonna let you finish talking. I just want to make sure.
No.
Yeah, we take care of it.
So I did receive your email, and I'm in the process of getting everything together. I'm just going through everything, because he did request, we had fill out a form.
Yeah.
As well as to provide the documentation I had, which I will provide.
I have bits and pieces of it.
Okay, but I will be sending that information forward, that it has been a struggle to remain a citizen of Blue Island and remain happy. We have multiple homes in this city. We have since, because of this issue and other issues, moved businesses out of Blue Island. But we decided to settle down here 15 years ago and raise our family, but this doesn't leave a good taste. So I do thank you, Mayor, for acknowledging it. Thank you, Mr. Picasso, for the communication, but I couldn't sit quiet.
No, I understand, and I believe this, again, you said previous administration did fall through the cracks. I thought as an alderman, like Alderman Johnson, we thought this was handled before even with our administration, and it did fall through the cracks. I apologize for that.
She reminded me.
I know.
Constantly. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
And good evening to you, City Council, Mayor. Hi, Clerk. I need to say something to you in front of everyone, and then I'm gonna get to my little sheet of paper, but I wish to thank you, because Blue Island definitely has some serious issues. We all know that, we've known it for years. However, one thing that you've managed to do, and I appreciate it, is the response to FOIA requests. You have yet to let me down in any capacity whatsoever. I appreciate your effort. And I certainly hope that somewhere in the future, we might be able to chat about some of the issues about government officials who use personal email accounts for government business. Because just for your information, I know former government officials use private accounts, and if I was to FOIA request it, it'd be headache for you. So it's just FYI. With that said, the law is only as effective as the people who respect it. And I want to repeat that. The law is only as effective as the people who respect it. What I appreciate are three things when it comes to that statement, and it's my wheelhouse. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, slip in my wheelhouse and talk with a little bit of confidence tonight, because my wheelhouse is meeting minutes, agendas, and municipal code books. Why? Because it's my proof. My proof that we exist as a system of government. It's proof that I can come here tonight and stand before you with whatever's on my piece of paper and speak. With that said, I wanted to at least put out, I'm kind of cheating tonight because I know that our website has WordPerfect, or not WordPerfect, excuse me, WordPress. And I actually, just some of my background, by the way, I'm a web developer, web designer. Shopify is one of the platforms I'm an expert at. WordPress is another one. So I'm about to cheat with the list that I have in hopes of inspiring you guys to start inspiring us to do more, because things will fall through the cracks. But if we don't come together as that group of U.S. City Hall, you know, us in our roles that we do, nothing's going to happen. So watch how fast I can go through this. Took a quick glance at the website, which, by the way, I moved. That's part of why I decided to check the website now that I finally had a chance to move. But with the issues that are important to me, the agendas, minutes, and the municipal code book. Number one, congratulations. You have the full archive, by the way. That was an issue with the previous administration. You've kept it very consistent with the city council meeting minutes, agendas, and it's appreciated. But I'm calling upon all you guys to consider every single meeting that you guys hold. We should be celebrating. You should be broadcasting. It should be posted on a calendar. It should be everywhere, so that someone like me, get home from work, I want to go to a meeting. Who's having one tonight? Let's see, the park district, you know, or the city council. there's a historical meeting coming up Thursday. Nowhere on the website. So whoever's responsible for the website, maybe they can step up that aspect a little bit. Also, April 14th, 2021 is the last YouTube video that was posted. Now, I know we're streaming and I'm, that's the appropriate thing, but there's no way to link the public to the existence of the videos that we're creating. So if we can get something on the website, at least that instead of the videos themselves being stored, at least a link, to these videos that have been created would be appreciated. 3, that calendar idea, as I said, make a CD schedule kind of thing, make it a PDF format that I can print it out and put it on my wall. If you also could inform the visitors, please, when they're going to leave your site. That's very crucial when it comes to security. A lot of times there are ways of hijacking websites and redirecting people to spoof accounts and things of that nature. And GreenPay apparently is the company that we use for city stickers and water bills and stuff. So if you just put a little disclaimer saying, when you click this link, you will be leaving the city of Blue Island, you're going to this site. It's an important component of the trust relationship, even when you guys contract with a third party. These guys are getting access to our information, you know what I mean? So at least let us know we're going. Also, the proposed ordinances that are on the agenda tonight, I couldn't find any drafts online. I don't know if I missed, and I could have missed something because I rushed. But if I didn't miss something, it's kind of hard for the public to talk about proposed ordinances once they're passed. We can complain if we don't like something, and then you got to go through the whole administrative process. So if we can figure out a way to get that taken care of, I think that'll help the public as well. And last, you guys have a page called Get Involved. And I got to tell you, Mayor, I've got no problem with what you have up there in the sense of offering up, somebody fills out an application. But I got to tell you, I'm not an application filer. I'm not looking to be on a board. I'm not looking to be on a commission. I'm looking for those opportunities like last year at a city council meeting. I heard that some trees needed trimming. I called up, said, can I show up? They said, you bet. And I said, put me to work. When I showed up and we got it done. Many of you I met doing the food drive that Lake Carol DePace Green hosted. I directed traffic. It mattered, and it was a way to go ahead and just because I had that brief moment, I knew where the event was, I'm out the door. So I hope these items excite you. I hope these ideas get you enthusiastic. I hope these ideas get your imaginations growing because look, we're getting out of February, aren't we? This could have been snow, couldn't it? Instead, we got ourselves some rain, So thank you for this time. I always greatly appreciate it, and I still appreciate it tonight. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Not moving forward, we have a motion to approve payroll for February 18, 2022, the amount of $341,012.49. Motion by Alderman Fairwell, second by Alderman Roll on the question.
I wanted to just make one note, and I don't think Alderman Roll is going to appreciate me pointing out his tremendous generosity, but it does need to be pointed out. On the payroll this time, there's a sort of a catch-up check for Alderman Roll. He has been trying to not be paid since he took office, and it's just generous nature. Turned out for whatever reason, it just isn't possible. So there's a catch-up payment on this time. It's looks like a large amount, but it just catches him up with what he hasn't received. Josh, very much appreciate your attempt to save us some money. Thank you.
Any other comments? Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee. Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
Six ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Next, we have a motion for approval of accounts payable for $285,094.34. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Carr, second by Alderman McGee on the question. Not please vote.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
Six ayes, Your Honor.
Next, we have a review of the IDOT analysis that was included in your package. There's a lot of things on here that Jim, I know Jim Public Works was going to start tackling for the stuff that's the immediate concern. That's really not the big issue like signage, lighting, repairing light bulbs and street lights. But there's some things I want the council to review or between now and probably the next committee of the whole, which will know be on the agenda up there too. For long-term possibilities to rectify our situation on 27th Street. Without spending too much time, we all know there's an issue. IDOT obviously is not going to fulfill on everything. They've agreed to do on some things as noted on here. And we just have to decide what we're immediately going to do outside the easy stuff that Jim's already been authorized to do when catch up and get time to do. But I'm inviting the alderman making comments now, but I wanted to include in the packet here, those of you that have not already seen it, and it'll be on the agenda for the next committee. Is there any comments or Alderman Fairwell?
Just in this regard, I look at it too, there's a lot of good ideas. Are we gonna be able to make any provision in the appropriation for, in case we decide to do something?
Mike, look through this, I think we can. A lot of this is minor stuff that just we need to allocate time for Jim and his crew to do it. Right. So has to wait for the weather to turn. I think a lot of the smaller items can be done within the budget of public works. The larger items, I think, if we want to tackle them, we would have to find money. I'm going to talk more about that. I know that administration is going to talk about draft appropriation tonight, and I wanted to address and more educate, like how we've done things in the past and how I think we should do them this time. I think Alderman Rowe might discuss some of these things too. We have a lot of carryover from previous years, but I have no objection to allocating some funds to some more major.
I do like the long-term objective of putting a median. Again, I would hope that it would be a tall enough median where people would not choose to cross to try to hold the median. Like a low-rise median. Hopefully it's a nice tall median, and I think that is a great way of getting people to use the crosswalks.
I agree. I think multiple people threw that out in the beginning of the rest of it. Your Alderman suggestions or comments, and that will still be on the agenda. All right, moving on, we have ordinance of the city of Blue Island County amending and modifying retiree insurance coverage. I'll let the attorney go over it again. And I know I answered some questions over the week. Basically, again, we're enforcing what's already on the books between 1990 ordinance and the 2014 ordinance, but I'll let the attorney go over it again, just to clarify some things.
Sure. So Section 3 of the ordinance that's in your packet really pinpoints what we're trying to do here. Basically, the city administration is going to work together with the city's insurance broker on cost-effective changes to this retiree health care plan. The first of those changes would be the retiree insurance would be provided for individual retirees only. That's what it was always meant to do based on the ordinance from 1990. It just wasn't always implemented consistently.
Across the board, meaning some people are getting benefits, other people are not.
And so if someone's family member, spouse is receiving the insurance currently, they will have the option to go on COBRA, so it's not immediately taken away from them. They do have some transition period. The next thing we would do is cut off retiree health insurance benefits after June 1 of 2022. So from June 1, 2022 forward, this benefit would no longer be provided to city retirees who are retiring after that date. Current retirees that are being paid over the age of 65, we're looking to put them on a more cost-effective Medicare plan. What was explained to us is that there is a different Medicare plan that plus 65 retirees can be placed on. That's actually better than the plan that they're on now and very cost-effective. Then the current retirees under the age of 65, we would move them to the basic healthcare insurance plan offered to current employees, which is the Blue Choice plan. That's what was always contemplated in the 1990 ordinance, and what should have been being done and just wasn't, again, done consistently across the board. Then we are going to look to standardize and equal out the amount of retiree contributions. We showed you guys during the POW, some are paying nothing, some are paying a percentage. It's all across the board what the contributions are. So we're going to try to standardize those and put them in an amount equal to what current employees are paying, which is again something that ordinance in 1990 called for, but just wasn't consistently implemented. And then finally, based on the POW meeting, we spoke to the insurance broker, and she indicated that herself and then Blue Cross would work on education materials for the retirees. when the modifications and changes are determined. So they'll also assist the retirees with any transitions that are made.
Nothing's happening overnight.
No. And there's nothing specific in the ordinance because we're still working on costing materials out and plans and things like this, but this is the basic concept of what we're going to be doing. We're now just waiting on insurance to run some of the numbers. And I know Mark has some of the cost savings amounts too.
Hasn't really changed much from the committee. It's quite a bit. And after speaking with Southburg mayors and other times, nobody's doing this anymore. And they should have been enforcing it all along. So all we're doing is enforcing what was passed several times in the past. I think they were afraid to pull the trigger. We got to do what's right for the city and the long run. We want to be very careful. We're not hurting anybody that's coming on, regardless if they're supposed to be on or not. So it's got to be a gradual transition, whoever it is. Alderman Congress. So I know there's going to be some back and forth on this. Alderman?
Yes, how will this affect the employees that has like pre-existing health conditions? By changing some of these or amending some of these things that's in the provisions?
I believe it's case by case basis, but majority is not really. The amount of, I can't be too specific, right? It's not a lot of people. Most will not see any change at all. And the ones that do might be a case by case basis, and some might stay on the same plan they're on. The problem is nothing has been reviewed like this in the past. Anybody's recollection of the council several times in the past do these kinds of things. And even the 2014 ordinance authorizes it. I want to make sure the council knows before I just unilaterally do an ordinance from 2014 and start affecting it now what we're doing. But it needs to be done across the board, fairly and equitable across the board.
Because I know like in some unions or some jobs that after you put in, let's say 20 years of service, that a lot of the time the spouse was added on to the health benefits or medical benefits free.
That's not in our contracts now once you retire. But those that are using the benefit outside the contract, we have to work with them gradually. None of this is meant to break, this doesn't break any contract.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I do appreciate your, discovering this and working on it. It's important. But there are a few things specifically that you work on this. I do have concerns about, so I'd like to say them now so we can think of them as you're doing this. Probably section B, the retiree health insurance benefit to end June 1. I'm just concerned about the effect it would have on people who've been here a long time.
So I already thought of this, Alderman, and headed that off with some conversations, really only affects a very small handful, because again, this is non-union, that language is specifically non-union employees. I wanted to put a sunset in there, but we can be flexible on that also.
All right, well, I'd certainly like to look at that.
We have to stop eventually sometime.
I understand, but just that date kind of jumped out at me. Also, you mentioned the more cost-effective Medicare plan. Are you talking about Medicare Advantage or,
Mark, do you remember the name of the plan?
Yes.
Yeah, I would be hesitant to call it better.
Well, our broker called it better.
Well, I don't think it is, so just be aware of that. It's different. It's got its pluses and its minuses, but as someone who's on Medicare, I elected not to take Medicare Advantage. Just be aware of that. And I would like to, when it comes down to it, and we're really, considering this, I would personally like to see some numbers about what the effect of this will be on our budget. Give some idea of what the effect will be on employees.
So Mark has preliminary numbers. We can be ballpark about it, Mark.
Yeah.
It's
I don't need to have it now.
regardless, it's pretty substantial, even if on the lowest end of not making any changes, it's still pretty substantial.
Okay.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars on the lower end.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Alderman? Not clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
What are we voting on? Sorry.
This resolution.
Oh, I don't like to make a motion to table it. I'm not ready.
There's, it goes to the next council. I'm not opposed to tabling it, Alderman. There is one specific thing that you want to change. I'm open to doing it. I just think the longer we wait on this, the final sunset is when the terms end. And I want to give the employees the most amount of time as possible. That being said, if there's some arbitrary numbers you'd like to make, I'm open to it.
I don't really know what I'd like to do about section C. I don't know, I'd like to get more information about the Medicare plan change. I'd like to see more numbers, so I can't, I mean, I would prefer to table it, you can vote on it now, I'll vote no.
And I also reiterate, I don't, the ordinances that exist, we can just do it anyway, but I want to make sure we're all on board here as a
Yeah,
team.
I appreciate it.
And all this language is actually repeating the language in previous ordinances.
Okay.
So,
Well, yeah.
if you make the motion, and we second at the table, I'd still like to get going on it. It's a lot of backdoor work for our HR team. But, I'm open. I'm not solid on it.
Quick question. Again, I believe this was mentioned at the committee of the whole. I just don't recall. How many people were going to be affected? Just, I think there was a ballpark figure thrown out or something.
Currently, the city of Blue Island has approximately 75 retirees that are under the health insurance plan. Out of those 75, approximately 50 are eligible for Medicare. The other 25 are not eligible for Medicare, meaning they're between the ages of 50 and 64.
And out of those, how many are union?
I don't have a breakdown of unions right now. I can definitely pull that for you.
But it's really 20-some over 65. It's a minority of a minority that would see some changes. Alderman Roll.
Yeah, for those who we would expect to transition to Medicare and or would have a spouse removed, who would be working with them to educate, to assist with the transition?
Be between Mark Tasca and Laura Beach.
Okay.
Along with the insurance program, which has been very helpful to a number of retirees that were transitioning into Medicare over the last 8 months of action.
Would you feel you're prepared to begin that assistance? I guess what would be the timetable before we can begin reaching out and assisting?
It's going to take at least 2 to 3 months. Our insurance broker was saying just to put together the informational, package, and then start sharing it with retirees. But I mean, it would be similar to an open enrollment process. It'd be, having a number of sit-down seminars and stuff.
Okay.
Any other questions? I know, and also Alderman, the one with the June date, it's very flexible with me, and even if they put it in, I would honor it. If the date was after sunset or something. I've tried, it's only a small handful of people that date, but it would affect future payments out of the city. Yeah. Any other questions? Not clerk, please do the roll.
But I'd like to make a
Make a
motion.
motion, Alderman General makes a motion to table. Is there a second? Second, Alderman Johnson, not question. Not clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
This is the table.
Yes.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya. Alderman McGee.
The table to the next.
It'll be the next city council.
Next,
city
yeah.
council.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
No. Alderman Roll.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no.
So it'll be at the next city council. I would urge you, with any alderman, any questions, please contact the HR or Mark's the point man on this one right now, so we can get a jump start on if we have to make any changes. But again, it's one of those topics nobody wants to talk about. It's the right thing for the city. It needs to be done. We just don't want to sit on it too long.
I understand what you're
So
saying.
please, the earlier the better with Mark. Like I say, he's got 3 months looking down. I know some have to change by December. That's a best case scenario. So it doesn't seem, it seems like a far time, but it's not a far time for dealing with people's insurance. So, and planning and everything else. So thank you. So that'll be on the next agenda. Next we have handbook. Okay, that's your resolution to the city of Blue Island, Illinois, approving and authorizing the implementation of the updated city policy and procedure handbook. I know it's been beat up for a little bit. Is there a motion? Motion, Alderman Rolls, a second. Alderman Montoya on the question. Alderman Fairwell.
Hey, that's a pretty dense document. I just was wondering if there's been any input from city staff on this handbook. How's the process been to develop the changes to the handbook?
Most all the changes are regarding legal policy to drug enforcement and COVID. The only real small changes we made were the hierarchy that I threw in there's the mayor hierarchy. The attorney has.
No, most of it was just to bring the handbook up to date with the current codes that have been in place that were enacted after this was last updated in 2016.
So even with that, those changes and things going forward still has to come before city council. To be agreed upon.
This actually didn't necessarily have to come before the city council. We're just trying to be, as the administration has been with everything else, transparent and involving everyone.
Past changes that were made were just made in-house by administration, but again, I'm trying to send as much as I can to the city council. At the same time, while we're making our agendas this long usually, but I felt when I was given the choice, I sent it to council. It's an in-house administration handbook.
Really quick. So I see the flow chart. Right on the top. I think that's perfect. As far as the city council is, I mean, I know each one of us is a liaison for different departments. I didn't see that.
Just a mayor's flow chart. The previous one had everything going to the mayor, and I included now the administration, and it's basically the mayor's flow chart. I mean, each department is supposed to have their own, and they have been passed. I think police, fire have already given me a rough draft of theirs, but each department will have their own flow chart. But again, it's more of a managerial. Those are all department heads or departments around mine. So I took the city treasurer and city clerk and elected officials off based on all of my requests. You guys are elected. It's not part of really any flow chart. You can still talk to me. And just like any flow chart, people need to know who they report to at the end of the day. That's what the main purpose is. Any other questions or concerns? Not clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
I don't want to vote against it. I don't want to vote in favor, because I don't think I know enough. I'm going to abstain.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Motion carries. Next two have to do with properties for closing resolution with the city of Blue Island, County approving the execution or purchase and sale agreement for sale of city-owned property at 2728 West 135th Street, Blue Island, Illinois. And it's the same for the following one. We do them together. These are already approved. Now we're approving the closing of these properties to finally transfer them. There's still a few to come. This is part of the original 10 we sold months ago. We're finally getting around to closing. So we can do them together. It's the same buyer, right? These two?
Yes.
No, trust me, we're waiting on those 3 or 4. This is the Renato W. These are the 2 that you want. He's the first to turn his paperwork in on time. So we have a lot of requested paper, for the closing stuff. So we do a motion to do both at the same time, to both the same buyer. So we need a motion for approval of both. Alderman Roll, is there a second? Alderman Fairwell on the question. If not, clerk, do the rolls for GNH.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya. Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, we have I, an ordinance for the city of Blue Island, County, Illinois, amending title 9, chapter 90, animals for the code. This is the one for the dog identification amendment. So it's for motion. Alderman Roll, second Alderman Carr on the question. Alderman.
Actually, Dexter.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I think this is definitely needed. I have several complaints about it myself. The thing is I would like it maybe spelled out more what is considered unhealthy conditions. If we can somehow add that language in there, something like that. Because I know several people that own dogs and their dogs defecate in their backyard, and were we talking about a little poodle or are we talking about and then over the winter time, it's really cold out. we can't pick up every single piece.
So where it says the owner or custodian, that's the language we're adding custodian, so it's not just the owner. Soil or defecation of any public property or upon any street something.
He's looking to the section of the, where it's on your own property.
Underneath.
And I kind of get what he's saying. Yeah. What is it, if you got a dog in your yard that you own, and you're never cleaning up, at what point does it become healthy?
Yes, correct.
Should we cite the building department or something, or health inspector?
Sure, I'm just like, it's language that's commonly used, and I think it's just when rats are coming on the property, or the health inspector has to be called.
I think everything falls under the building department. We just throw that in there, it falls under the purview of the building department, then health falls under that. Anyway. I think that's what we call these issues anyway. Other public questions, Alderman questions, comments on this one? Madam Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
So are we waiting on, the, building department for this, or?
Is it just as a matter?
As amended.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Carries. Next, we have the Green Energy Resolution for the City of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, approving authorizing proposals for Project Green Environmental Solutions, the LED lighting at City Hall, East Annex, and the fire station. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Fairwell, second by Alderman Carr. On the question? Not, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
All right.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Next, we have a resolution for the City of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, ratify the agreement with Rush Truck Centers. This is for the 4 trucks that we might get 2023 for public works. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Fairwell, second by Alderman Roll. On the question?
This is, you said for public works, right?
For international.
No, I'm just saying. It's
Yes,
for public works. Okay.
And it just, if I could add, you may have missed the discussion earlier, we're definitely not getting all 4 trucks. We'll be lucky to get 1 truck this year.
Right. It takes 2 years to certify.
These are just like the following one, they're both in finance, so we're
Okay.
or make sure the money is in the budget. Any other questions or concerns? Madam Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
All right.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, we have the police and fire resolution for the City of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, approving and authorizing the purchase of vehicles for police and fire departments and converts the proposal from Farm Credit Municipal Finance. It's a motion by Alderman Carr. Is there a second? Alderman McGee on the question. Alderman Johnson.
Yes, are these vehicles that we purchasing also gonna be, good for ALS?
These are all explorers? Explorers. Those are all patrol.
No, okay,
The only one I include fire department, which might be still modified, is one might go to the fire department for the chief. Because this is 20 years old that he has now, but that might not be the case with their explorers nonetheless. They're not fire trucks.
okay.
Yes.
Just for clarification, I'm sure we've said this, but when do we expect to receive these vehicles?
Commander Sepulveda, I think you have a date, a tentative date.
2 of them are available right away. This week, the other 4 are waiting at Fort Bank.
Oh.
Get shipped to the dealership. Probably a month.
Are they the white ones? Are they white or what?
They're all black.
Black.
Question,
Alderman.
what are we gonna do with the old ones?
All right, I can talk about this. Jim's gonna be extremely happy that.
Oh, okay, so we're
We're
transferring,
transferring the public.
and that's my thing, Chief. Because instead of, I think that there's other departments that can utilize some of the vehicles until they, go out of
We've been
court.
using the salt spreader truck to do water checks, last month.
Okay.
We have hand-me-down still for freezes in.
Okay.
Problem beds and freezes, so we're gonna get rid of those. There'll be another auction to get rid of some cars. Any other questions or concerns? Madam Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
All right,
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell, or Roll.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. And Jim, whenever you get them, please mark them Public Works. All right, they're gonna strip all their stuff out of them, they're gonna mark them City of Blue Island Public. So when they're checking the water bills, They don't think it's a police officer stopping in front of the house.
You got it.
Thank you. We have J, a resolution for the city of Blue Island, the county of Illinois, approving and authorizing a tax increment financing district and city development agreement, Rebel Creamery. And I know it was finally gotten back to the owner. You have the agreement and the resolution. I do also want to see some specs, but that would all go through the building department anyway, and we added the stuff from the comments from the aldermen into it where they have to pay it back if they close that reserve on time. They're not asking for much, so I put it on the agenda because they want to start like March 1st, and they want to start developing the stuff. We need a motion, a second. I talked this whole question, I'm sorry. Motion by Alderman Montoya, second by Alderman McGee. Is there questions or concerns? Not clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya. Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. I know it's not on here, but made those announcements, I'll be very brief. Tonight, we're going to talk about a draft for appropriations, and I think you all got a treasurer's report. You can look at that now. I'd like to walk you through it. So in the past, and some of you may recollect, the budget process has been different every year to say like, so appropriations usually is a percentage higher than the actual revenues come in because you're not sure how many revenues come in, yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, it should follow this year. If you look at the treasurer's report, and I could just point out a couple of restricted funds at the bottom. We have MFT. So let's look at MFT. There's roughly $2.6 million in that line item. It's not reflected in this year's budget. And it's not going to be revenue in this year's budget because this is previous year's monies that were never spent. So there's multiple ways of doing it. The easiest way is to put it into the budget, which has not been put into the draft. None of these fixed accounts have it. The same goes with the TIF accounts, the parking lot accounts, the business district, for example. If we finalize, actually go out to bid like we're planning to in March for streetscaping, we'll be using 6 years worth of accumulation, mostly for this year. So this is where it's going to differentiate from the revenues coming in every year because it's rollover money from previous years. I'm doing a crash course just to go over some things, and some of you realize in the past. So when you do see the draft, which this one will not show these yet, so we haven't plugged these in. But let's say hypothetically, Work Engineering sends us something in a couple of days, which they probably will. They picked, I told them 8 to 10 of the worst streets in town. Give me a budgeted amount. I'd like to put that in the budget because I'd like to shoot for it. 2.6 million MFT, that has to be roads. It has to use MFTs for road and road rehabilitation and salt and some minor issues. So let's say we want to be on the conservative side. Let's not even look at all the TIF money. There's 6-7 million there. There's business district funds. Let's say we shoot for 2 million, which is a big amount, as all of them in the past. Notice we never had that much in a road fund budget, but it's not to be reflected in revenues this past year because the money's taken several years to accumulate. It's coming in higher amounts because we passed a gas tax. The aldermen were here when we did it. It has now started to bear fruit this past 6 to 8 months. So it's gone up dramatically, but it has not been spent. So in the appropriation, monies from these fixed accounts we plug in where there was no revenue in those accounts. So it's going to be a large amount next to a zero amount revenue, or let's say 2.6, this might have 600,000 that's projected to come in this year. This is several years of MFT. I wanted to get that out of the way before Tom and Mark start going into the appropriation because these numbers not even in there yet. Right now, I think they're kind of keeping it close to revenues versus expenditures, but it's going to throw that number off once you start plugging in rollover amounts. These are just big amounts. I'll give you a small example. We went out to bid, we had budgeted $200,000 for a roof for the fire department, police department garage. We did not spend it. It's not shown as a rollover in this draft because we haven't gone into the new year yet, we haven't approved it, but that's going to have to be rolled over. So they're going to have to figure out a way, along with Gaspar and accountant, to mark that this is a rollover fund or this is from a fixed account to make it easier to understand. But I just wanted to put that out there because these are things I've learned over 18, 20 years of being elected. But it's not an easy task, and I thank Alderman Roll and my administration who've been working on this diligently for over a month now, more than that. And I know they want to speak on this, but I wanted to give my 2 cents in because I came in and I want to make sure we don't forget about this because if I don't budget it for the appropriation, I can't spend it. So when these numbers start going in, you at least remember this conversation, and as we go along to a final draft or final approval next month, you'll understand where some of those line items in the road fund, where that money came from. Even if we don't squeeze the money out of the general fund, there is enough money there to do a lot of streets this summer, which is my goal and everybody's goal. We got to fine tune it. But I've authorized Bert to go out there and guess estimates for the 8 worst streets on the road plan. They're going to put an email together showing the map that was sent out. 2, 3 months ago with the worst streets, the red and blue and green. And they updated it based on the stuff we did this past summer. And I said, pick all the dark reds and give me some estimates back along with CDG, they're reapplying for new streets and the TIF roads that were not done last year. So you should be getting that soon within a few days, and then we'll rehash all this in the next copy. But I wanted to give you that under mayor's comments where I'm coming from with some of this stuff in case you were wondering what these fixed amounts from. So this is, again, I'll cut it off because I'm already taking too much time. Treasury report is pretty much money that's in accounts, and some of it's fixed. That's why it's the bottom below corporate and water and payroll and stuff like that. The money has to be used for the most part for certain purposes, and it's several years worth of money being rolled over. Any questions with that little, my tidbit on appropriations? I know they're gonna go really into it later.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I'm, pretty much agreeing. Probably the only thing I would caution us all about is that, in the last couple of years, the first couple of years, we haven't had to go for tax anticipation awards, and because that's just how close our cash flow sometimes runs. So we'll need to be.
Try to keep that.
That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to keep that going. And to your point, I was involved since 2014, but I've been involved since 2003. The city has always done tax anticipation warrants except for the last few years. So I need to start doing them. I know that's part of general business. I'm glad we haven't needed to do it. That's why I'm being conservative, because you have a lot of money in tips and stuff. You can't spend it all at once. You got to spread it out. So I threw out Burke Engineering. I said, pick 8 to 10 streets. I'd like to spend $2 million next year, which is a fraction of what we can. But we'll see what they come back with. He said in a few days we'll have some rough estimates. And they're all my comments. I know they're going to really get into it. I just want to talk about this. That's why I did it before we print it. So if not, I'll move on. City clerk's announcements.
First of all, we got some phone calls. The Howby from 2-9 was not uploaded on YouTube. It was only 34 seconds, and Mr. Sepasi is going to be checked into it. So we don't know why. Because I put a few packets in front of you tonight. We're starting the hometown heroes. The banner should be going up this week sometime, and the website will be uploaded. A lot of the surrounding towns are doing the hometown heroes. Our cost is only $100, and the banner will be up there for 2 years. We'll be up from Memorial Day to Labor Day. You can sponsor someone to be a hometown hero. If you look online, there's Lansing, Robbins, Midlothian, Burbank, several of the surrounding towns all recognize their veterans. And since Blue Island's never done anything for veterans, we thought that would be a good idea to start. So if you have any questions, you can contact me or suggestions, or we've been working on that for a little while now. Next is the Help Keep Our City Clean campaign. That is going to be April 23rd. We've started a committee. We've met twice so far. We're moving along really well. We are doing, I emailed the committee tonight, and I've also put papers in front of you. We're also looking for sponsorships just to help offset the t-shirts. So the whoever sponsor, if I want to sponsor $100, and my name will be on the back of the t-shirt. If you guys have any questions, I believe the next meeting is March. I'll email you what you all know. And like she said tonight, maybe I'll make sure that goes on the website too, so if anybody else wants to come, they can see the minutes from the meeting. Anybody have any questions so far? Nothing. Back history, that's Saturday. I think you should have got an email today from Beverly, or she sent an email out to inform everybody, to remind everybody. It's Saturday at 4 o'clock, the John D. Reader Rec Center. We have a lot of performers. We have Pastor Christopher Brown from one of the churches. We have Sonia Wilson, who else we have? Ray Thomas, Chris Welch, our Speaker of the House, Nita Graham, Sheila Wilson, and Deborah Sims. So just a few. We have Edmund College dance team coming out in St. Joseph. So we've been working on this pretty hard. So it's a pretty full lineup, and it starts at 4 o'clock. So if you have any questions about that,
I got a question. So why isn't this information passed out in the neighborhood?
that's out where?
In the neighborhood?
I believe Mr. Jackson, this week is Julia Blitz, and there's a banner We moved from the Park District down to the rec center. There's a big, huge banner in front of the rec center, promoting the event.
Right, but a lot of the times, as I complained before, is that nothing goes on at the rec center, so nobody go by it. So, but if things were put out like door to door for people who do not have internet, and for people who, you know, just don't have access to that, why doesn't it go?
I believe that's the plan.
Why does the schedule for the events that they do have not door to door? We get stuff from the Blue Park District before we get anything from the Blue Rec Center.
I don't know anything about that. All I know is that.
I know you don't. I'm just,
I can look into
confirming
it, but as of right now, I'm on this committee, and I believe it is going out door to door, and we have a huge banner in front of the rec center to promote it. It's on the website, it's on social media. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Next, under city attorney, the resolution for the city of Blue Island, County of Illinois, approving and authorizing the purchase of golf course equipment. Was presented in the committee of the whole for first equipment. Alderman Roll, is there a second? Alderman Montoya, question? Alderman Fairwell.
Okay, so there's two reasons why I don't want to do this tonight. One is it's a significant amount of money. I think it should be considered in the appropriation and either included or not included in the appropriation. And also, it's another significant investment in the golf course for which we don't have insurance. I guess therefore I would move to table this.
Motion made at the table. Is there a second? Alderman Johnson on the question. Now clerk, please do the roll to table.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya. Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
No.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
4 ayes, 2 noes.
Table. Next, we have an ordinance for the city of Blue Island, County of Illinois, implementing the general license provisions. This is about the business licenses that came to light during our last hearing with business. We attach everything, but need a motion in a second. The motion. Alderman Roll, seconded by Alderman Montoya. Question. Seeing none, clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes.
Next one, I'm gonna ask the table unless there's objection from the city council. It'll be on the next city council agenda. There's amendments sent over by Alderman McGee, and our building department and attorney hasn't reviewed them just yet. And to give the benefit of the fit to Alderman McGee's position on it, as he has some experience, we're gonna table it and put it on the next agenda. Is there any opposition to that? Yeah, and going forward, we have an ordinance for the city of Blue Island, County of Illinois, amending chapter 72 parking regulations, 123rd Street, half a block. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Carr, is there a second?
Really quickly, I drove by there. And yes, you're right, there's no parking on that portion from between the alleyway and Artesian. There's one parking space, so technically what's being lost is only one parking space.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Now, clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Finally, we have the Veterans Memorial One-Way, an ordinance for the city of Blue Island, County of Illinois, requiring one-way vehicle traffic within the city of Blue Island, providing penalties, violation of same, that 1 block Greenwood. Is there a motion? Alderman Carr, second by Alderman Roll on the question. Now, clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Next, for city administrators.
Tom Morgan, City Administrator. We're gonna get into the draft in a minute, but I do feel compelled, just to update the council about the vote that was just taken and the impact of it. So the golf course can't open without the spare equipment for the discussion. We originally planned on opening the golf course probably over the first week of March. We're gonna have to push that back. Piece of equipment, being told by the seller, take it for what they want to worth, that they're going to likely sell the equipment elsewhere if we can improve it in this way. We can try to find another one, the price will increase most likely, and the financing option probably won't be possible. So just making it clear to everyone when the golf course isn't open, that's the reason.
I got a question. Is it possible that we can utilize what Public Works has?
They don't have the equipment is a sprayer specific to chemicals for weeds, bugs, etc. It is not a piece of equipment that, so it's golf course specific.
So it's pretty much water tank.
I can't really speak to the specs of it.
Okay.
My understanding is the golf course specific, but it's not something Public Works would have. So.
Does the sprayer only spray the greens? Does it only go downward, or is that can it?
Interim golf course manager here, I can have him try to answer that
Yeah, I understand. That'd be great.
if you'd like.
Yep.
Good.
What was the question, sir? Does the sprayer only spray the greens, or does it also spray the trees, or
Everything, yeah.
It sprays everything.
Drop, everything.
Could this piece of
Anything that's on the grounds, the whole grounds.
could this piece of equipment is it? It's a standalone piece with its own engine and everything. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Could it be used to spray our trees and that are possibly infected? You know, in the summertime?
That's definitely something I could talk to service about. Absolutely. I mean, I can't give you that answer, but I could definitely speak to them.
So Service Scape will be running the machinery we're getting ready to buy.
Yes, sir.
We own all the machinery.
We own all the equipment we pay.
Right, so I'm just saying, we don't have nobody trained to operate that machine.
Under our current payroll now.
And if it's involving chemicals, Alderman,
And you
like parsing.
There's certain,
I'm just saying, because it has hazardous material.
there's certain certifications you need to do.
Right, I'm quite aware of that.
Right.
So we don't have nobody, not in Public Works, nowhere, that can operate that.
I can't speak to Public Works.
That would be interesting. I mean, if it could be a multi-purpose, you know, then you can use it for, you know, then it serves a larger purpose. So,
I think council needs to decide if we're closing the golf course down or not, because regardless if we privatize or not, every company makes the owner buy the equipment. And even the people close to that, we would be on the hook for maintaining the facility buying equipment. All of them.
We're not closing the golf course down. This proposal needed to be made earlier, or the appropriation needed to be ready earlier. This is not something I want to do. I don't want to close the golf course down. I think this is the responsible thing for city council to do, to protect the city.
I understand the position. Why it wasn't brought earlier is during the winter time, when they're down months, they go and they examine all their machinery and make the proper fixes that they need. So it was discovered recently.
It's just where we.
No, that's right.
And Alderman, I want to clarify, since we gotta make a decision. We gotta, whatever it's gonna be, the future is, right? We gotta make a decision. We gotta guide on all the decisions going forward.
Like I said last time too, I mean, this piece of machinery is gonna outlast all of us in this room. It's gonna last 25, 30 years. It's a long-term investment for us.
And the financing.
And there's financing options, which
I reiterate, it was 2,000 a month, Mr. Franchetti, it's in here.
it was roughly 1,600 or 20, something like that. It's 1,700 a month, it's built into the trap.
Yeah. For 36 months, 736 months.
Yes, sir.
And the last one, this is 1994.
That's when we had it, but the machine's even older than that. We bought it used at that time.
So are we gonna be able to make enough money to pay for it?
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, because we haven't been making money, that's the issue.
The
That's the
monthly,
main issue.
the monthly payment alone could be covered in one day. All right, so just to make note of the director's report that was handed out to you earlier in the meeting, if we look at the accounts that are related to the golf course, under the main golf course line item, we have $395,000 in the bank. Under the golf concessions account, we have $5,937 in the bank account. From the Meadows video gaming, we have $43,520 in the bank.
We have 63,000, 43 is pregnant.
And yeah, 60, I'm sorry.
He has made money every year, and all of them, you have to pay the water bill all the time. It's the offset of paying the debt to build it.
Right.
Also was not doing for a long time before being you.
And we
Catching
also,
up on.
the water account has zero balance currently as well. With the water balance owed to the golf course is a zero balance.
I understand, Mark, but I'm just saying, you know, from previous dealings with this, as the chief knows as well, we had not. So if this can show that it can cover it instead of on the residents, and it could be used as Alderman Hughes spoke in other aspects to also help the city, I would consider.
Yeah, how difficult would it be to train somebody to use that machinery?
Now, my concern with this machinery on city streets, treating trees would be an insurance issue that Alderman Fairwell brought up. That would be my concern, having a golf course piece of equipment on city streets, spraying trees for pesticides or for bugs, or, you know, I'm not sure what you're looking to spray.
Well, usually in other towns that I've lived in, Lincoln was per se, they put the sprayer in the back of a truck, and then the truck can spray and it kills the mosquitoes.
And that's the South Suburban Mosquito Abatement District, we already pay taxes for.
Yes, but again, you know, they can only do so much. It's better when, you know, we can use it in-house as well, and then it would also repurpose that equipment, and we, you know.
I think the
So,
conversation,
that would justify it.
I'm not disagreeing. I think the conversation for what you're saying would open up a can of worms to residents that don't want their insects to be built on public streets that they're maintaining. So I can see the yin and yang on both of those arguments. However, I see where you're going. That from my part, but I know that we never had anybody on staff be trained for chemicals, but it wasn't worth the cost of putting somebody through the labor of school. But I don't know if anything's changed in the last few years I've been on that.
And that's part of the purpose of having service kit for them, and that's what we pay service kit for, is for them to do the maintenance of the golf course.
I think the question, does it pay for itself? Yes. Does equipment be budgeted? It will be in the budget. Does the golf course pay for itself and make a profit for the city? Yes, it does. The issue is the liability, like Melvin has brought up in the past, which I think we're trying to address with an umbrella plan. And the long-term question, are we in favor of continuing running it ourselves or with private? The only issue I with privatizing, as I said, and we weren't going to talk about it, might as well talk about it, is that if we lose any revenue, then privatize where it has been made.
And even if we went with the proposal that was presented by Alderman McGee to outsource the management of it, that proposal also required for us to still continue to provide the equipment. The equipment was not included in that proposal. So no matter which route we go, we would still be on the hook for upgrading our equipment at the golf course.
Just my primary concern continues to be liability,
So what,
period.
the city of Blue Island is self-insured. So
It's not insured, it's not self-insured, it's not insured.
I mean, it's every single police officer. I mean, we can run a loss report on the insurance claims that we've had at the golf course.
Just takes one, big one.
I understand, I mean, that's.
You know, my view on it is, we have to run the police department, we have to run public works, we have to do, you know, we don't have to run a golf course, we don't, we just don't. And it's a big deal, you know, if something bad happens out there, and we could be on hook for a couple of $3 million real quick, or worse. And we're on the hook for it, period. It comes out of our, you know, our funds will go real quick. I've watched it happen before.
Goes back to the main issue. So let's put on the agenda for committee of the whole and settle it if we're going to be in the business running golf course or not, because it keeps coming up. I think we got to make a decision. Are we going to run it or not? But I am in favor of the city making money where we take money out of the fund and we pay for our things. with you that it does pay for supplement our police and fire departments where we can, because not those departments aren't self-sufficient. So it is a cost generator for the city.
What's that?
Is it time sensitive situation?
Extremely sensitive.
This one's.
And so,
Picture
so
on program.
as the mayor said, you can't take this to committee of the whole. The equipment will likely not be there to purchase. The finance officer will want that likely to be there. We'll be left in the same situation and wind up paying more money or making the decision that the golf course will remain shuttered until this one piece of equipment can be purchased.
Okay, so when
It
is
seems
this-
short-sighted, but the
when is
council can make this.
this- Right. when
It
is-
does not seem short-sighted if we're talking about liability. That is the issue here. It's not about whether this piece of equipment comes to us or not. It's, are we gonna have liability for this golf course? That's the issue.
So at this point, because we're gonna keep talking about it, we can make a motion to reconsider, or it's not, it's already been tabled, or failed. So if anybody want to make a motion to reconsider, otherwise we can move on to the appropriation. Motion by Alderman Montoya, is there a second? Alderman Carr, is there a motion, the second, to reconsider the motion regarding golf course equipment? The clerk, please do the roll.
Please make a comment.
Yes, Alderman.
You know, the proper way, the responsible way, to purchase a $72,000 piece of equipment is to appropriate it. You know, that being said, it's a shame that it's come up this late in the winter, and it's now a forced decision. The long-term question of what we do with the golf course should be handled responsibly and according to a plan. So I'd like to reconsider my vote, just in recognizing that for now, we do have a golf course. We do have employees that work at it, and we do have an immediate need. While pointing out that this is not the ideal way to be presented with this information. So, it's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Alderman. There's a motion on the table. There's a motion made and seconded to reconsider the motion. Please do the roll call.
Alderman Johnson,
Taking into consideration what Alderman Rowe just spoke about, I would say yes.
yes.
I,
Alderman Fairwell,
yes, I would also respect Alderman Roll's position and vote yes. I don't care for the way this is being done at all, but I get the point.
Alderman Montoya,
Yes.
Alderman McGee,
Yes.
Alderman Carr. Aye. Alderman Roll.
I,
Carried, Your Honor. Oh, okay.
So now we're back to your motion back on the table, and your motion is second to approve that. Is our motion? Motion by Alderman Roll, second by Alderman Carr. Questions? Clerk, please do the roll.
Question.
Yes.
Mayor. Going forward, we got to be better at this.
I want it on the committee of the whole. Let's hammer this thing out because we gotta move forward. Appropriation moving at the same time here. We're all learning the new rules of trying to do things right.
Right.
I am not a golfer, as you know. We spent a day out
We-
here.
we-
I have
me and
never
you
played on
together.
that golf course. I do know the benefit to the city in the short and possibly long term of the revenue source. I share some concerns brought on by the 2 other aldermen. So I'd like to just finally hash this out to move forward, planning long term, because that's something that's never been done with that golf. I think everybody can agree on that. So.
And I'll
let's
say
say
that, I'm gonna vote yes here. But really, because I understand the point Alderman Roll just made, I am still adamant about insurance for this golf course, and I will not vote to continue the operations of the golf course unless we pay insurance in the future.
Like using equipment that, you know, you don't have somebody that, you know, to operate other than service gate. It's a little bit troublesome, so worrisome, so.
In the roll call, where we're at.
Alderman Johnson,
Aye.
Alderman Fairwell,
Aye.
Alderman Montoya,
Aye.
Alderman McGee,
I,
Alderman Carr. Aye. Alderman Roll.
I,
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Continuing on with the appropriation discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. So each of you has in front of you a draft, and I want to say that with a capital DRAFP draft of the fiscal year 2022 budget. The mayor, myself, Deputy Administrator Kataska, Alderman Roll, a couple other aldermen, Alderman Fairwell's been involved in some parts of this, have met with all the city departments, got a great deal of wish lists in terms of staffing, in terms of equipment. I think the conversation we just had, the conversation spreads to a lot of different departments about deferred needs and unmet needs. We agree. So
what I'd like to do tonight, well, let's give a couple quick overview highlights. First off, again, this is a draft, including the fact that some of the formatting still needs to be fully completed, so apologize on some of the little size things, stuff like that. And then you're gonna find some areas where you'll see little highlights on certain cells. I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. That's the staff, myself, going through things, putting a pin in things for future visits. Some of it's just discussion items that we think we're gonna need to have. And I would, while this is mostly baked, this is not fully baked. This can and will change before we do a final posting. And then there are possibilities for minor tweaks after we do the final posting or the 10-day posting. Once we do the 10-day posting, we are hopeful that any minor tweaks need to be minor after that. So going into it, we have and I do want to actually speak to the timing on this because I think it's important and it's been brought up. This is coming a little bit later than we all would like, quite frankly. But we have a few things in play here that lead to that. Some of which is we have a brand new city council and structure, which changed the way that this normal business was done. But I think the most important thing in terms of this administration's entry into the city in May is that you cannot do an appropriations without a tax levy. You cannot do a tax levy without a bond. So we found ourselves in a domino situation of trying to accomplish each of these things, having to rely on outside contractors, et cetera, in terms of the accounting. That's one of the reasons that why the RFP for new accounting went out. So we want ourselves in this situation, not for lack of effort, but for lack of information on the way in, lack of staff. So here we are with this initial draft. It's a lot to chew on, so I would encourage each alderman to go through it extensively. It is, we are showing roughly $20 million in general revenue funds, and this total fund expense appropriation as is spent a shot at that. Okay. Now, as the mayor explained, appropriations can exceed expenditures for planning purposes. Budgets are a vision document. Okay. So if we're thinking about what the vision of the city is, it is possible to appropriate things with the understanding that appropriation is not spending. Appropriation is permission to spend. Okay. Obviously, we're going to appropriate a number of things. Revenues will be what they are. If they don't pace to our projection, we're going to have to make adjustments. If we want to buy, we won't be able to buy. Bottom line is we need to make payroll, like any organization, business, etc. So our first priority is going to be to protect our payroll. If things got very dire, obviously, that's where things like layoffs happen. But we are very hopeful and cautiously optimistic going into this year that we'll see some stronger revenue than we have in the last year, and that the projections are as close to accurate as we can realistically get. So with that, I do want to offer just a couple highlights, and then I think Alderman, I'll turn over to Alderman Roll for his comments and thoughts about how we want to move forward from here, considering that we are doing things a little bit differently than the previous committee. So each line item within here includes requests for staff and equipment from department directors. In very few cases, where we watered down, but in some cases we watered down what the department head was asking for, common sense reasons or operational reasons, based on the mayor's priorities and how he directed the administration. But in a lot of cases, you are going to see increased payroll by department, especially in our larger departments. Each of those can be justified. Each of those came in a request with an idea behind it. I'll give you just one example because I think it's very easy to digest. Police department put in a request for additional part-time officers. So you're going to see a noticeable spike in the part-time line item, but we also made an effort to reduce the expected overtime because more part-time officers for things like events and, so the non-immediate patrol items allows us to not have to call in full-time SWAT officers. You'll also see certain restructuring elements in there. So obviously we restructured the police department. That changes their total payroll. There's some effort to provide some administrative assistance in the form of deputy administrators like that in places like public works. So some of that. So slight change from previous budgets. And we're actually really going back to how the city budgeted in the past. I'm not sure where the change happened, but this follows a traditional budget pathway of assigning the expenditures as money, not as individuals. So you'll see in each department there is going to be a full-time salary line item and a part-time salary line. In the past, Some departments broke that down by individual jobs, some did not. It was not uniform. So the intention here is that this is the spending of the budget. The final version of this will include an appendix, an exhibit A, if you will. And that will be the salary schedule. Right? So who's, each job, and every job in the city, whether it's filled or not, whether as long as it's appropriate for, every job and what that rate is. Okay, so that will be information, and we will get to that if I don't want to include it in this because we're still working through it. But every job will have, there'll be a document that will be as part of your approval process, that will show every employee. Okay, so I just want to make clear about the transparency of that. We didn't take away the individual line items in the budget to try to hide them. We're trying to create uniformity, standard budget practices, and make it easier to understand this is the money we're spending, right? And so when we look at, obviously some of them are very easy, but when we look at the police department, we say, okay, we know, that we have, say, 6 or 7 sergeants, they make, slightly different rates. What are 6 sergeants going to cost the city, right, in total? And then, as long as we're good with that moving forward, we will list out the pay schedule of who's exactly who's state one. So I just want to make sure, because that is a change from previous drafts of this budget. Okay, for those of you who've seen this exact budget before. Liability insurance, hot topic. So liability insurance, as best we can, is accounted for in this, and I'll tell you how we did it. And obviously, that's open for further discussion. So I've been in a long process of our liability insurance application. They require a great deal of information to insurance to insure a city, obviously. If you've never been to the market before, they require a whole lot. So we're working through that process. Mark, myself, other staff members are working through, checking out like individual department heads chasing down certain things. It's a lot of information. One of the things they need as a chicken and egg issue here, though, is the completed version of the stuff in terms of finalizing it. So we're not going to have a hard quote from them before this is passed because they want to see this because we don't have an active bond rating. We probably need to consider that moving forward, but we haven't borrowed them sometimes, so we don't have an active bond rating. So they're very much want to see what exactly our finances look like on this year before we're going to get it quote. So with that in mind, earlier this meeting we had a discussion about retiree insurance. Right? So what we've done in this budget, and again, this is, call it placeholder, call it concept, whatever you want to call it. What we've done in this budget is say, okay, we know we have likely expected savings in retiree health insurance. And we don't know exactly what that number is going to be, but we know it's not going to be small. We know it's going to be a 6-figure number. We know we have, if we are going to get a liability quote, general liability quote, we know it's not going to be cheap. And it's likely going to be a 6-figure a year payment. So with those expected savings, plus some expected savings from things like our workers' comp liability and legal fees around that, because we did bring in a third-party administrator this year, trying to package those savings, those estimated savings, into the insurance fees line item to try to create as much room on the boat as possible. So if we get a responsible quote that we're all comfortable with, that we have at least hopefully all or most of it accounted for, and then we can do some accounting work after that to make sure we can do it this year. We also have to recognize no matter what we do this year with general liability, even if everything goes perfectly, we're not going to be insured for full year, right? Because we're already with that. Right? So we're looking at probably April before we get a full quote. But it is spoken to in here. It is represented in the insurance fees line item in general gov. Whether it will be enough room, time will tell. But it is an effort to put a significant amount of money, about $300,000, towards specific general liability insurance. Right? So I just wanted to give you a sense of what our approach was in this first draft. Okay. I'm trying to think what other main items are. I have another role at this point because I know we talked ad nauseum about this.
Did you want me to talk to timetable from here?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so this is the administration, the mayor's office handing this to our deliberative body in the council, right? So we're kind of now, looking at the council and lead about how you want to involve, how you want to go about input changes, etc.
Yeah, so we were thinking, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, because we kind of hammered this out pretty recently. But between now and the next committee of the whole meeting, once everyone's had a chance to look at it, we'd like for each of you to meet with me or with Tom, if you'd like to better characterize some of this. I'm working on that, so this is a little easier to digest than 300 something pages of spreadsheet data. And you know, Tom can answer questions, but to start to formulate some revisions, if any, that you'd like to see, or some proposals that you make. And ideally, we'd have all that in hand ahead of the next committee, the whole meeting, to sort of collate that and deliberate, you know, where there's overlap. So that from there, we can call a special meeting to go ahead and get this passed.
Good question. Actually, for Alderman Roll, you had mentioned previously about a road fund. Is that in this draft?
Yeah, it is, and I don't know, Tom, that was essentially that we're creating an account, right, in the ledger. So we can appropriate money to that account within different departments, but it all falls under that one header.
Okay. What is it listed under?
I think I got all there because it might, we have it existing in a couple of pieces, but that actually might be it's a good question. It is, but that might be a conversation between myself, Alderman Roll, and our accountants.
Yeah, the one spot is, I noticed under the NFT, which is all road fund.
Yeah.
But it will have to be all brought from these different restricted accounts listed on a separate page. And it may be possibly that page where the funds are coming from. Like this 600,000 is MFT, this 600,000 is the 5, the 600,000 is general fund. And then you can have it all on one page, which I think was the purpose of having a separate fund.
Yeah, absolutely.
The money has to come from restricted accounts, so you can't take them out of those accounts until you're ready to spend them. But for ledgering purposes, just keep an eye on where the money's at. That's the easy thing. You just gotta do. MFT's already done it. I just don't know where you moved it to. It has 600 growing for a road fund. But I haven't done it. I haven't done this whole thing, but I know under MFT page, it's listed under the restricted fund. There's 600 for restricted.
So we have, there's 600,000 on this repairs in the MFT fund.
Just
That would be the only pot we would draw from. That's
just clarify for the council, the most the city has ever spent 1 year since 2013 that I've been paying attention was $600,000. The most. I'm sure there's a million for the summer, but and the money is there. I just don't want to, like Alderman Fairmont will say, spend all the money in 1 year, then we don't have a cushion. But $2 million is very conservative considering the amounts of monies they haven't spent in previous years, on top of possible potential savings we found in running a more efficient government in some respects. So I'm not talking about money that possibly come down the road. Plus, there's one other one. What's it called, Mr. Pataska, that we got? ARPA, whatever. ARPA funds from the government for that used for road repair. That's not shown in this either, and that's
1.6 that we've received already, and then another 1.6.
that's a one-time thing.
And also, Alderman McGee, if we were self-insured since my tenure, if we could curb half the lawsuits that we got, we could have our streets fixed without that. You got it.
Let me just ask one, and I know we don't want to get the specifics here, but one little thing, just not so little.
that's what I'm into.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just, and that probably there is a good answer. Pension funds, the actual spending on a pension fund was minuscule this year. There's kind of an accounting reason for that. So if you look down, first page, police pension fund expenses, actual 21, $28,000, whereas previously we're putting in $2.5 million. So there's got to be a reason, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And if you don't know it, I just jumped off the page here.
And just regarding pensions, we follow exactly what we levy for. So it's exactly what we levy for.
Okay, it just says we spent $28,000.
Yeah. And I believe
So the actual FY20 actual is an interesting accounting exercise. Just, we're doing a lot of cleanup work. So that's police pension payment PPRP. I need to go back because then there's nothing listed in the actual meat of the payment, which is 2.4 million appropriated in 21 and 21, but the actual is listed there. And this is probably a little bit of spreadsheet error, Alderman, but I understand that.
Yeah.
What we were doing is based it on, so the 2.62 million is the 105% that we have discussed when we did the levy.
The pension is one of those lockbox funds that you levy that money goes straight to the pension fund. It is, that's one of the only debating during the levy is how much do you want to put into pensions? Where do we put in? you levy for, the less it's gonna be in the
And
general
if you want to
fund.
bond or borrow down the road, you're on a lot better paper if you're showing responsible.
And we have consistently for at least 3-4 years paid the maximum actuarial recommendation for its pension to lower the debt. The debt is substantial, but again, as I've been told by our actuarial accountants, Foster, we are doing a lot better than neighboring towns. The Toronto one is got less than 10% funded or something like that. We're at 30 to 40%.
I noticed on my property tax bill, I'm not going up to 40%. Yeah.
So that's we're working, and it's better than a lot of times.
So moving forward, as I was on the roll, we would like to have as close to a completed, document done by the committee of the whole on March 9th. One idea, I believe that was floated was, since we will be meeting on March 22nd anyway, to have a meeting on March 22nd, an hour before as a special hearing. If we don't have a special hearing to finalize this, just from a calendar standpoint, no matter what we do, no matter what day we pick, if we want to do this, it has to be done by, Aaron, you know, it has to be done by.
The first quarter.
Has to be filed.
31st. So anytime we do it, no matter what, we need 10 days before post it in the paper, really 12 days, it takes 2 days to post. It has to be posted in a periodical, we post it in the Southdown. So there are some requirements that we have, that we need to make sure that, you know, we pick a date to the 22nd, then we gotta have it done by the 10th. If we pick a date the 30th, then we gotta have it done by the 19th. So that's the logistics of it. And as Alderman Roll said, if you don't have time for a meeting and you want to just call myself or Mark and or email us and say, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's what I'd like to see more of. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to, you know, we're already, you know, it's quite the plate spinning exercise. You got, you know, multiple departments, multiple considerations, multiple priorities, none of which are improper or misguided. There's a lot of stuff to do. So we did our best to keep it as balanced as possible. If you understand, like I said, that if we want to create a vision of what the city is, that the appropriation might ultimately wind up over the expenditures. We'll to the revenues, but we have to spend it.
Again, business district, we spend 5 years saving that money. It's all going to be spending one large sum where it takes several months, several years to build that up. That's where you're going to see big differences between revenue and expenditures this year.
Also, just one last piece. There's a couple large chunks in public works equipment, and specifically the water meter equipment. Again, if we wanted to start down the road of updating and improving our severely antiquated water reading system, which has both physical costs, cost of labor, efficiency costs. I can go down the list. Jim Polstra could go down the list even more aggressively than I could. It's a worthy investment to consider, but it's one of those investments we want to really want to start that this year.
Questions?
About authorization, unless there's more questions.
Any other questions? What else we got? All right. Automatic announcements, reports, and comments. Alderman Fairwell.
I did want to just kind of echo what was said in public comment earlier. I had noticed that, you know, we used to have a calendar of meetings on the homepage. I don't see it anymore. It's kind of a handy thing. It'd be great if we could have something like that again. It's a handy tool. Even I used it. It was nice to have.
We can send out what I emailed to the other.
Yeah, and it you know, incorporate, yeah, if it could incorporate zoning, you know, all the public meetings would be great.
And I want to remind also that we are eventually got to build a new website. We went out for RFP, we got prices on. I'm sure it's still after now, but that's something that we've been wanting to do since my entire time as an alderman. It's from like 2006.
And the other thing is maybe more of a chore, but I'm not sure. It's something to think about. I've always, since I've been an alderman, I do realize that the public doesn't really have easy access to proposed ordinances, and I get it. It's hard. I can understand why in some cases, but it's something I'd like to think about. How we could make those more easily available so people have some idea what they're coming and talking about.
Would it be advantageous to put the packet online or
Well, I thought about, maybe, I think about
at that point? It's not.
causing any problems, but it's something to think about.
Once I send it out, you are considered out.
Yeah, no, it's,
If that's, that's an easy job.
all right, I like it. Yes, thank you.
Alderman Dodd.
Yes, Mayor, if any events or street closings or there's anything happening in any one of our wards, is it possible that we could, be known about? So when our constituents ask us, that we're knowledgeable about what we're talking about.
I know for any special events, we're going through the clerk's office, if it's the alderman.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
an
yeah.
emergency or something?
No, I'm just saying, period, like businesses, whatever. I'm just saying anything that's going on in each one of our wards, that we know about it. So if our constituents ask about it, that we're knowledgeable about what's going on. Instead of like, I'm just saying if something happens or new business comes, and all of a sudden it's there and we don't know anything about it.
So I have.
That's all.
With the businesses, for example, they follow all the, I don't even get notified. Clerk's office doesn't notify till they pick up their business license or open up the next day because there's no reason to come to city council. We have to add a layer, but I think where it's more complicated, we have to go and let the alderman know. But there's times business is open, I didn't even know about it because there's no reason to come.
Well, and I understand that, but being hospitable as well. If you're in my backyard, hey, and I'm the alderman, hey, how you doing? Maybe I like it even with the product that you have. You know what I'm saying? It's just more or less being hospitable as not only as a city, but as a neighbor and as a resident.
And one or two aldermen, because I'd like to know for myself, I'm turning off to the clerk's office. Say any business license applied for this, let me know, and all of a sudden. It can't be a lot.
Right, and it is, because I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm just saying it would be nice to know, just like when the bridge closed, we knew when it was closing, when it was opening, things of that nature. So when your constituents ask you something of that nature, should we take a detour? Well, how long the bridge is gonna be out? Well, it's gonna be out until whatever. That looks like we're more informed, like we're on the same page. I guess more or less that's the reason why we had an issue with this sprayer for the golf course. Things of that nature, just trying to stay above, ahead of the curve. That's it.
Thank you. Any other alderman?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the city administrators for their diligence and hard work in preparing this initial draft of the appropriation. I think it's a daunting and difficult task, even in ideal circumstances for a new administration. So thank you. And again, members of the council, I just encourage you to reach out to me the next week or two. If you want some help characterizing some of this data, go ahead and reach out.
Any other alderman comments, concerns, announcements? We do not have executive session, unfortunately. So we need a motion. Motion by Alderman Trammell, second by Alderman McGee, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?